Hi guys, this is Vidas.
And Ausra.
Let's start episode 70 of Ask Vidas and Ausra podcast. And today's question was sent by Matt, and he writes that his challenge is with registration, flow, and marking. How to how to use pistons and stops to flow through pieces and mark them well in a score. As I understand, Ausra, this is a question about practicing registration changes too, right? Or not?
I'm not sure.
Let me read it again. How to best use pistons and stops to flow through pieces. What does it mean? To flow through pieces. Okay. And mark them well in a score. So basically, how you mark registration changes. Oh, that's very
Yes,
simple.
that's how I think about it.
Okay. What's the system you learned in Lithuania?
Well, in Lithuania, we would just mark stops by numbers.
Numbers.
Never stop names, but only numbers.
Mm-hmm. What's the system you learned in America?
Well, we would write the stop names down.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like just numbers of combinations, because if you would have a piston system.
At the exact space in music, you write abbreviation of the stop. Let's say principal 8 would be P8, right?
Yes.
Or flute 4 would be F4. Of that manual, you have to indicate the number of manual, either with abbreviated letters like great would be GT, or swell SW, or choir would be CH, right? Or simply by writing what number of the manual, 1, 2, or 3.
Yes. And if you have to change it in particular spot, you would just write it in that particular spot. If you have time to change stops to add or to omit some stops, you would just indicate that it's a free sort of addition.
Yeah.
And to make it clearer, some people in their score add like stickers
Mhm.
and colored stickers, to grab your attention, that you would not miss it.
Maybe if the stop changes mm, happen in on one side, on the left side, let's say, you could use one color
Yes.
sticker, and on the right side, you could use another color to
Yes,
be
that's an
to
excellent
be
idea.
more helpful for your assistant.
Yes.
What else? We have seen people do registration indications on a separate sheet of paper, right?
Yes, that's also useful sometimes.
That's how we do our beginning registration, right?
Yes.
In order to keep our scores relatively clean, we write beginning registrations for each piece on our performance list.
Or each movement of the piece, if piece has a few movements.
True. So that means that by the end of the movement or the piece, you have to mm, press either cancel on a combination system organ, or mechanically basically disengage all those stops, right?
Yes. Yes.
There is another system which works interestingly. I found it interesting to use on a relatively small instrument or medium sized instrument. I've seen European organists do that especially when they have a little of time to prepare, and their assistant is not used to the layout of the stops. So on a separate sheet of paper they would write um, numbers from 1 to, let's say, 10. How many stops are on one side of one manual? Let's say at St. John's Church, on the left hand side for the grade there are 12 stops. So you could write 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and up until 12. 12 is a rather large number to get noticed on the layout of the organ, but maybe up to 6 works well, especially if it's a horizontal layout, not vertical. What do you think, Ausra?
Yes, that might work. If you have a small organ, as you said. If it's a large organ, I don't think it would work.
So then let's say if you have to add something for the pedals, and your pedals are only 6 on the left side, you would write +3, right? And your assistant would count 1 2 3 and draw that number 3. It doesn't have to be exact number 3 marked on the stop knob. Yes, the number could be quite different, could be even 23, but the position in the pedal ranks would be 3, right? And
Yes.
that's how they will easily find the right stop knob. But that only works for relatively small instruments. So abbreviation of stops like P8 or F4 would be good for occasions when you have to literally know what kind of stop you are using for your assistant, right, Ausra?
Yes, that's true.
What's the problem with numbers?
Well, for example, for me, if I'm using numbers, I never know what kind of stop I'm adding, so I just prefer writing stop names.
Hmm.
That's easier for me.
If you write +14 or +17 or +24, your assistant will not know exactly what kind of stop you would prefer, right? What you meant. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe you wrote 12 instead of 13. Maybe you meant 23 instead of 13.
Yes,
You don't know, and they don't know. But when you write P8, it's very obvious. You need principal 8 for that
definitely.
manual.
So I prefer this system.
Yeah. It's basically forces your assistant also to think a little bit what kind of stops they are drawing.
I know, but in most cases, assistants simply don't care so much about what to add, and it might be easier for them just to look at the numbers.
Especially if they're used to that
Yes.
system. So you have to probably decide for yourself
Yes,
what you use.
maybe try one system and then another system and see which one works better for you.
Or sometimes we don't write stops at all,
Yes,
right?
yes.
When do that happens?
Well, it happens sometimes, especially when you have to try, a new organ and you don't have time at all.
Hmm.
When you just do, improvise your registration on the spot.
That's a good exercise, right?
Yes,
Improvise your
that's a good,
registration.
yes.
That's how actually organists back in the day, when they improvised a lot in public, right? People down in the church would hear like it's a real composition, right? Like it's a written down composition, uh, very specific, detailed composition. But organists would improvise a very detailed plan for for this piece. and registration changes would be quite extensive too.
Yes.
And that means that you will simplify things. You will draw the stops that you could do yourself, not necessarily everything at once, but just a few things. So thank you so much for listening. Please send us more of your questions. We hope to help you grow as an organist. This was Vidas.
And Ausra,
And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.